Talking. Hi, welcome to If These Pages Could Talk. Today we are going to talk about what the best-selling genre is in the literary world, how to get some help if you are a new author of this genre, and a little bit about the writing process. I am your host, Kiersten Marcil, author and adventure into history, and I am here with my co-host,
Sevannah Storm, romance writer.
And we have a special guest today, Renee. So Renee, would you please introduce yourself?
I am a romance author for fantasy, sci-fi, and paranormal romance. I also work as an editor and publishing assistant for Champagne Book Group.
Awesome. I know we have so much to talk about, and I know people are going to be excited to hear about that. But first, we'd like to play a little game to get us started. And this week's game is 2 read, 1 did not finish. So we're going to start by sharing maybe 2 books that we've read just really fast, maybe our recommendation why you should read it, and then one we just couldn't get through. So who wants to go first?
Okay, I'll go first because Renee is like, please don't pick me, please don't pick me. I was just telling Kiersten about this. This is called Feet of Clay, right, by Terry Pratchett. It looks like it's back to front. It is anything with Commander vibes in it. I'm a seller, and it's basically about a golem who gets a mind of his own, and there's been a crime, and he has to figure out who done it. And I briefly read it. It's he's not only got to find out who done it, but how done it. He's not even sure what they done. But as soon as he knows what the questions are, he's going to want some answers. So that was it's one of my favorites. I've reread it. You can see how old it is. And the other one, brilliant. Anything by Terry Pratchett, actually.
Yes.
And then obviously this big one, it's The Lineage of Grace by Francine Rivers. And it's all the women in the path to Christ. It's just, love it. What they have to go through, their emotional trauma, their decisions, what motivates them. It's just it's a lovely read. And my daughter brought me this because she missed water on my original. So it's a nice little hard book.
It's very pretty.
It is.
Yeah, I love this
gorgeous.
Book. Yeah, and the one I did not finish reading, surprisingly, is Philip K. Dick's book.
Masterworks.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I couldn't get past the first chapter.
Really?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I couldn't get past the first chapter. So,
and that's the basis for the movie Blade Runner.
Exactly. But in this book, he's married, and his wife's trying to decide what code she wants to activate today because she's an android and he's an android, and he's suggesting she choose the one that says be a biddable wife, and she's planning on having 2 hours of depression, so she wants to choose that code. And the whole time he's worried about whether he should get a real horse and not the android horse he has, android sheep he has. Yeah. So I just didn't know what. Okay, no, thank you. So I stopped.
Just didn't know where it was going, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So no.
Well, I knew it was different, but that's so different. It makes you wonder. Doesn't it just make you marvel how people take a book and they turn it into TV or movie out of something like that?
No, just a concept.
Right.
Like sharks in a tornado.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go next. I adore Simone St. James. This is her first, The Haunting of Maddie Clare. This is such a fantastic book. It's a great time period. It's set in the 1920s. Absolutely, like when it's creepy, a little, some gothic going on here, and she's assisting a ghost hunter, and boy, do they find what they're looking for. So I love her work. I highly recommend her. I have also read a self-published author, so I want to give her a shout out. Wendy Wang writes this wonderful series, The Witches of Palmetto Point. This is the first one, Haunting Charlie. I know I ended up with the theme here, but
yeah.
But what's great about this series is just how it's a family sort of series, and just how she grows into her abilities and comes to peace with them and how to use them and help people. And I could not finish, but I'm going to try again sometime. Middlemarch by George Eliot. I love this period, and I don't know. I love classics, but this one is just not me.
What about it? Was it the
Is it
writing
slow
style?
or?
Yeah, like I have to try again. I tried a long time ago, and it was dense, and I think it was slow, and I don't know that I got past the first chapter, honestly.
Well, you got a
So
bookmark, it will tell you.
I think that's from Useful Son, not me. I think Useful Son tried it.
You have a useless son.
We call him Subsequent. We were hoping that, we don't want to be too direct, but by calling the older son Useful, because he's so lovely, that would help encourage the younger son. But
No, it goes the opposite direction.
oh no, he laughs it off, and he's like, yeah, right, you thought that was gonna help. What do you have, Renee?
I have a couple of my favorite books that I have reread into pieces, and they're not terribly old, but they're well read. The first one is War Prize. Why won't my camera work?
There it goes.
There we go. Yeah, it fades it
By
out.
Elizabeth Vaughn. It's the first of a trilogy, and it's the best of the three. I love it because it's a princess whose kingdom is taken over by a horde of barbarians, and she is traded off to them in a peace treaty. But her horrible brother tells her that she's going to be a slave and she's going to be abused, and if she does anything wrong, the guy's going to kill her. But she goes anyway to save her people. I mean, she's just that noble and that awesome. And it's two people that have been told all the wrong things about each other.
Yeah.
But they grow together in the end, and they find out what's true and what's real and what's a lie. And it's amazing. It's so, so cool.
That's
I mean, I don't know if I would like willingly walk to my death. And he never meant to kill her, but she was convinced she was going to die, and she went anyway.
Yeah.
And that had me hooked right from that spot on.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
And the other one is a familiar author, but maybe not a familiar series.
Oh my word.
There it is.
There you go.
Sherry
Okay.
Lynn Kenyon.
Yeah.
Very familiar author, but this
Yeah.
is her League sci-fi series.
Okay.
And Born of Ice is my favorite in the series. It's a woman who is a slave, and she was her mother and sister are being held captive, and she is supposed to set this guy up to be arrested. And so she has to plant evidence to say he's a crook, and he's not. But she gets on his ship and his crew and really likes them. But if she doesn't set them up to be arrested, her mother and sister are going to die. And again, really intense. I like dark books. I like super intense action. So that's a really good one as well.
Awesome. And you
And
could
then
not
we get
finish?
and then we get to my problem child.
Yeah.
And I'm really sorry, author, but I could not do this book.
Hold it
know
in
the
front of your
name.
face. Hold it in front of your face. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, I see J.R. Ward.
Yeah.
J.R. Ward. I love the
Yes.
first 4 books in this series. And then I
Mhm.
get to Fury's story.
Yeah.
And he's weak, he's whiny, he's a drug addict, couldn't do it. Could not do it. I don't like victim characters.
Yeah.
I don't like everybody feels sorry for me characters. I know too many people like that. I don't want to read it for fun.
Sure.
So I
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
finish it.
Yeah, I
Oh my
don't like
gosh.
rude characters. I see there's no reason for you to be rude. I don't care what you've gone through. That's how I feel. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
rude and whiny.
Whiny. Whiny is a big one for me.
Yeah.
I was a figure skating mom and a 4-H horse show mom. I don't do whining.
You get on that horse and you get off your butt and because that's the only way you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. All right, we're gonna jump right in. So tell us, what is that best-selling genre in the industry?
Romance.
Yep.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely. And I wanted to, before I wrote that question, I did want to double check. So I did a little research and yes, the Masterclass 2001 said romance. Argyle Fox Publishing said it's a $1 billion industry. But I feel like there's still stigma, and I'll admit I kind of had that for the longest time myself until I started writing a book that included a love story. And it doesn't seem to matter what the subgenre is. But Renee, why don't you tell us, what is it about romance that is a draw for people, regardless of, the subgenre of romance?
I think it's a message of hope. I think it's a guaranteed happily ever after that, no matter how crummy the real world is, you can escape into this story of real people that have real issues, but you're going to see them succeed. You're going to see them try. And it's a story of hope. It's the happily ever after, that it's not going to
guaranteed
end
happily ever.
badly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the big difference. A lot of writers, we talk about with the genre is, if it doesn't have that happily ever after, then it's just a different genre with a love story.
It's not a romance. And that's what I tell my students is the happily ever after is key. You can have whatever hellfire in the middle, no problem, as long as it ends with a happily ever after or happily for now.
I was going to ask.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, does happy for now count? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the difference for people who aren't maybe familiar with the happily ever after versus happily for now?
Happily ever after is forever. It's a hardcore commitment for the rest of your life, barring until death do us part. Okay. Happily for now tends to be with stories with a shorter timeline, that there's no way you can know forever on a 3-day weekend or something like that, which will come into play later. But happily for now is, hey, I really like you. We've got a good thing going. Let's see where it leads us. So it ends on that optimistic note that they're planning on continuing the relationship after the last page.
Okay, cool.
But you can't really say forever because the relationship is too short and too new, but it still has that optimistic twist.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. Since I'm trying to decide where I want to go with this. So we see a lot of like sweet romance in movies and television, like Hallmark romance, that sweet, sweet stuff. What about the spicier stuff? Do you think there's a place in TV and movies for it, so it doesn't, cross the line into something else?
I think there is, if you have enough of a plot to have a story as well as, because if you just have hot love scenes and no plot, some people will consider it porn.
That's 50 Shades of Grey.
I was trying not to say that, but yes.
Sorry, I didn't get that memo.
No.
You have to have a story.
Yeah.
A plot with, action and high stakes and things that draw people to movies. And then you can have a love story or romance involved in that, but I think there has to be something else, and it's probably a really unpopular opinion, but I don't think just two people that never leave the bedroom isn't enough of a draw.
Isn't that 9.5 weeks? Well, they do make it to the kitchen. So they left
if
the
I've ever
bedroom.
seen that movie, I know what movie it is, but I don't think I've ever seen it.
What about Bridgerton?
Oh,
I started that, but I didn't finish season 1.
I've like watched it
I'm
4
not
times.
a big Regency
Mm.
reader because it bothers me that the end goal is marriage. Like marriage will solve everybody's problems, and
Mhm.
it's kind of hard for me to buy into that. So
It's so funny that you say that because I don't have Netflix, so I haven't seen the show yet. I just watched clips, but I love the book series. But like you said, Renee, because I'm a binge reader, I find an author I like and I just read through all of it. I binge read the whole Bridgerton series, and
okay.
and it was good, but you definitely see like the first couple where it's the meat market with the ton and it's like, oh, where is something else? And I do like that later in the series it does become something else. Like not all of the characters go that route. And of course my brain is not functioning today to give me the character's name, but there's a couple of them where they're not even in London in this season. And I thought that was cool. But you might like her prequel series because it's not Regency, it's the parents' generation before that, and it's not, that's not the goal. It's really sweet.
Yeah, if there's more story going on and that's not it, then
Right.
yeah, absolutely. Because I like historical romance a lot.
Mhm.
Julie Garwood's old series, I adore.
Yeah.
Before she switched to romantic suspense, she did historical, and I love those books.
Yeah.
But it just needs to be more than just the romance, because if it's just a straight romance, I get
Right.
bored.
Right.
Yeah, seen that, read that, done that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do it. It has to have more going on. They have to have more in their lives than just the other person. Because if it's just the other person, where does that cross the line into codependency?
Mm-hmm.
They have to be a
Mhm.
person in their own right with a life
Yes.
of their own that
Right.
they choose to share with another person.
Mm.
Oh my God, it's so funny you said that because 2 nights ago, I'm revising my second book in the series, and I don't want to give it away because the first book just came out, but just the situation she's in. I actually wrote that in where she had a moment of, her love interest is missing and presumed dead, and she's like, what have I become outside of this guy? Like, do I still have my own person without
Mm-hmm.
him? Yeah,
Yeah,
what do I do?
But
Yeah.
that's
it's a good question. My mom had that. She's passed away now, but she
Yeah.
had that where she went from being somebody's daughter to being somebody's wife to
Mhm.
being somebody
Mhm.
else's wife to being someone else's wife. Okay, my parents have been married multiple times, but
Yeah.
when her third husband passed away before her, she was like, I've never been my own person. I've always been a daughter or a wife. I don't know
Mhm.
who I am as Sherry.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was like the saddest thing I'd ever heard.
Right.
Honestly, And so
That.
that's why I have to have more going on in my stories, in my
Mhm.
life, because I want to be known as me, my own person.
Mhm.
Not Todd's wife, not Josh and Tammy's mom, not Roman's grandma.
Right.
I want to be Renee.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's probably why empty nest syndrome hits women hard. Because suddenly they're
Mhm.
no longer someone's mom. They're just someone's wife now. Because I mean,
Yeah.
you've been someone's mom for so long, up close in their lives, actually guiding them, and then suddenly they move out or they go off to college, and you have no say in what they decide to
Mhm.
do. And it's
Right.
empty nest syndrome. You're like, okay, so now I'm just a wife now.
Mm.
Where am I as a person?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's okay to reinvent yourself. I
Mm.
mean, when that happens, you just have to decide, what do I want to do? And the first step is deciding that what you want to do matters, that you have a right to stand up and go, I want to do something.
Yeah.
Or be someone.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That
That's
was a
that's
bit depressing.
oh no.
Just gonna.
It's not meant to
No,
be
no,
depressing.
don't
It's
No
meant to be
alcohol.
proactive.
I need alcohol now.
Yes. Yes, you definitely have to be proactive. I think that's what I like about time travel too, and that's something I tried to explore a little bit with my first book, was just this idea of when you lose those labels, you know, what do you become? So, yeah. All right. Let's move on. Did you want to add to that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So what would you all right. No, I do want to get to this question. Sorry, I'm all scatterbrained today. Have you had an experience where someone you knew from before didn't know that you wrote romance and then read your books and had that sort of oh my kind of reaction to the books?
Probably a lot of people. I don't know how many people have actually told me though. I've had questions about whether certain scenes in my books came from real life. And you always get the questions if the characters are based on real people,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's really funny when somebody goes, well, did you write so and so after me? And I'm like, what, do you have a guilty conscience or something?
Or a sense of
What are you telling
self-importance.
me here? You know, they always say that characters are, you know, fictitious and all ideas are the author's imagination, and any, you know, lines drawn that look similar are purely coincidental. But I think a little bit of me goes in all those characters. My dark side, my light side, my hopeful side, my angry side, because you write what you know. And when you put your heart out on paper, it's all versions of yourself.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Now you help new authors learn how to write the genre, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm part of the process for revamping RWA, Romance Writers of America. They've had a lot of drama in the past few years. They've had a lot of controversy in the past few years. So there is a core group of us that are trying to fix that. So basically the programs for Pen to Paper and Ramp are the idea of giving back. You know, all of us once upon a time were wannabe romance authors. We thought it was cool. We wanted to get in. We had no idea how. Okay. RWA is trying to make it a little bit easier on people to give them a clear path. So Pen to Paper is for absolute beginners. They don't know whether they're plotters or pantsers. They don't know what a plot is. They don't know how to develop characters, description. I mean, it is bare bones basics. And it goes for 9 months, and it helps them finish a rough draft to get a story idea in some kind of linear fashion to the end.
Yeah.
And then Ramp is a second stage program for people that have a finished draft. That is a prerequisite that they polish to get presentable. Because we've all seen rough drafts as editors. It's not pretty. We're like, we wish you would have gone through a couple of times before I saw this mess. And it gets it polished up. You know, it goes through all the pre-editing stages, cleaning up a manuscript. So when it goes to an editor or agent, it actually looks like a finished product, something that they can work with. So that's the Ramp program. And then the whole controversy with the contest that they had, the Vivian Awards, the Rita Awards, they had a lot of diversity issues. And then they had a genocide issue in one of their entries. So they were going to pull the plug on the contest. They weren't going to do contests anymore. We're trying to redo the Vivian contest. So I'm also on that committee for training judges, for making a framework of rules and regs so that everything is across the board and even. And we're just trying to make it so it's professional and trying not to have so much drama and problems. because I really believe in RWA, and it's had problems, but everything's fixable. You know, that's the hopeful part of me, the optimist that has me writing romance in the first place. Is everything is fixable, but you have to work to do it. And if somebody doesn't step up, it ain't gonna get done.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, and I don't think there's a single organization out there that doesn't have a growth period like that. So that's really wonderful. It's really exciting to hear that you do that and you help people like that.
It's time consuming though.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure, because you still have, you know, the your life and day job and your own writing to do too and all that, I imagine.
I don't sleep much.
I'm still waiting for some of her writing.
Yeah, I know.
I'm giving you a look.
Savannah's also my critique partner. Savannah's also my editor, and I'm her editor. So yeah, we're joined at the hip.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I did not
She
know
has
that
written
part.
way more than me. I feel bad.
No, but I'm not
No,
doing what you're doing at RWA. I'm not doing that.
I swear I will finish Brecca and Flynn. I swear to God I will.
Come on, when you get to it.
Whatever. Can you send us our links to that in your website so that we can include those below for people who are interested?
For what?
For the programs that you just told us, Ramp and
Oh, they're not on my website, but they are on Romance Writers of America website.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
source them and get them.
And
Thank you.
that's public domain. So you are more than welcome to put links into RWA.
Okay.
Yeah, the only prerequisite is the programs. They're not, you don't have to be an RWA member to be in the pen to paper program,
Okay.
but they are RWA programs. So like the materials and the instructors and everything are all RWA members.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's get to it. How many books have you written?
9.
How many are you up to, Seth?
Me.
How many are you up to? Yeah.
About
84.
24, 25.
Oh my God.
She's way outwritten me.
I just finished my NaNoWriMo. It took me forever.
Oh, good for you. See, this is why I'm the host and you do all the talking, you two, because I've got the one.
Yeah, but look how much research you put into that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, how many, Renee, if this is an okay question, how many years does that represent for you in terms of writing? Just so people get an idea of like what the writing process is like.
My first version of my first book was from 2006.
Okay. Okay.
A Guardian's Heart is the reincarnation of duality, which I was published with Samhain before CBG. And I was with Samhain for 10 years until they closed their doors.
Okay. Okay. You had mentioned that before in one of our CBG chats, and I was like, is she talking about the holiday? I didn't, I should have asked
no,
you.
it was a publishing house that I
Cool.
truly loved. And I was lucky in that I had one editor for all 10 years. That like never happens.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And we still keep in touch.
Oh, good. That's awesome. So what got you started writing?
I started honestly when I was 6 and I was writing horse stories. I was a huge C.W. Anderson fan and the Black Stallion and all that. So I was writing horse stories in pencil in those big line notebooks that they had in grade school with the dotted line. I was writing stories on those notepads when I was 6 years old, and my grandma called me a writer when I was 6.
Oh,
And then
cool.
I started reading fantasy books. And then the first romance book I ever read was Sky O'Malley by Bertrice Small.
Okay.
And nobody was combining fantasy and romance together at that time. I mean, Mercedes Lackey kind of dabbled in it, but it wasn't really a thing. So I
Okay.
decided to make it a thing.
Ooh, good for you.
And
That's
now
awesome.
it's like it's a big deal, but once upon a time it did not exist. And I'm old enough to remember that once upon a time.
That's interesting. You know, the first romance novel I ever read, don't mind the cat coming in. First romance novel I ever read, I got tricked into reading it because I thought it was a fantasy novel, and it turned out it was a fantasy romance. That's so cool that you got us going that way. Because
Bianca D'Arc, she was like my goddess. I
yeah,
loved her books.
that's cool. I'm not familiar with her. What like what kind of fantasy is it?
Um, she the series that I really liked was Dragon
Okay.
Shapeshifters.
Yeah.
Um, and it was poly relationships where it was two male dragon riders and then the woman that actually loved them both. And then the dragons would bond as well. And it was just this really cool dynamic that I just loved to pieces.
Wow, that's neat. I'll look into that. Now, I saw in your bio that you were also a Joseph Campbell fan.
Mm-hmm. Yup.
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe you could talk to us a little bit about if you're familiar with his hero's journey.
That's the basis for all of my fantasy books. When I talk about having the action and the romance, it kind of follows, an ordinary person who there's a big issue and first they think it's too much for them and then nobody else is doing anything about it, so they have to. And then yeah, I pretty much follow the hero's journey in my plot line.
Mhm.
The romance arc is a whole different thing, but definitely the hero's journey. That's why I like to have action in all of my books and stuff going on. I think it fits the dark moment and the happily ever after and everything and all those little arcs. It fits perfectly. And I
Yeah.
really like it. Gives me a structure because I'm a plotter. It gives me a base structure to work with. No matter what the details are that are different, I still hit the same points. And when I
Okay.
get lost and confused, it's a good thing to fall back
Yeah. Oh, that's good advice. I like that. For people who aren't familiar with it, think Star Wars, because they said when George Lucas read Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, it was like a whoa, and it became huge in Hollywood. And Star
on.
Wars is a classic hero's journey format.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yep.
that's a really good advice. Okay, so I'm curious, how long does it take you to plot out a book before you start writing?
Um, Honestly, months. Because I have to write I have to write in between all this other stuff I've got going on. But I
Okay.
do a lot of research and a lot of before thinking about
Yeah.
it. Um, the setting, the characters, the main problem.
Mhm.
Basically I know where it starts and where it ends, and then I figure out how to get there. And then when I figure out how they got here, well then how did they get, and sometimes I end up plotting backwards.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
I'm like,
That makes
what would
sense.
cause this to happen? So then I go back and have that cause. Well, where did this come from? And then I go back and yeah, I have a weird process.
No, but that makes sense because Neil Gaiman has once said that um writing your first draft is like riding through the fog. You don't know how you're getting there, but you know where you're going.
Mm,
And so I think it totally makes sense that if you know what they always say you have to know the ending, which
mm.
I
I
didn't when
never
I
know the ending.
A lot of pantsers don't. I
yeah.
don't tend to have fog because I do all the pre-plotting. The details can change, but the main idea stays the same.
Okay.
And your
Okay.
ideas come from where?
All different things. An article I see in the paper, a stray bit of dialogue I hear in the coffee shop, um, a
Seditious
movie or a
Hearts?
book I've seen, huh?
Seditious Hearts comes from where? Uh,
Just thinking about what I've already written, what worlds I want to explore. When it comes to a series, the subsequent books are characters that were introduced previously that I loved enough that go, hey, they need their own story.
Cool.
So all of my books are standalone. It's a series in that it's the same world, and previous characters will make visits into subsequent books, but each story is standalone because it's an individual couple.
Oh, cool. Okay. So then, since Seb led us into it, what is Seditious Hearts?
Seditious Hearts is book 1 of Seduction by Starlight. It's a new series I wanted to do just because I love sci-fi. I wanted to kind of explore that. And my favorite trope is enemies to lovers.
Cool.
So what I have is an intergalactic war with a hero and heroine on opposite sides of that front.
Cool.
Such a good read. Such a good read. When we get submissions to Champagne Book Group and it's similar, I'm always like, Renee, do you want this one? Because it's right up her alley.
Yep, anything fantasy and sci-fi, that's my jam.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So then on a scale of Hallmark sweet to ghost pepper spicy, where does it fall?
That's my hottest book I've ever written.
Oh, cool.
I don't know about ghost peppers because ghost peppers almost killed my son when somebody snuck beef jerky, venison jerky on him that was cured with ghost peppers and they didn't tell him.
Oh, I'm so
And he
sorry.
was just like, oh my God, Ma, I almost died. So I don't know if it's that hot, but it does hover on the fringe of BDSM and alternative clubs. And I'm definitely an open door writer. So maybe habaneros?
Oh, I'm glad your son is okay. Oh my God.
Yeah, he was so mad at his friend for doing that.
Oh, I can imagine. Baby habaneros. I like that. We're adding that to the official scale. That's good. So okay, so then walk us through like your writing process for this book.
Seditious Hearts, and this is gonna age me again, date me terribly, but I had one heck of a crush on Chakotay.
Yes, me too.
Lonan is Chakotay reincarnate.
Okay, for those who don't know.
Okay,
Sorry.
Star Trek Voyager was a
Yeah.
show, and Chakotay was the
Googling.
first officer, Native American. He was a Maquis operative, so he was a rebel against the official powers that be. So he was the Starfleet
Yeah.
officer that went rogue.
Okay.
He's
Yes.
totally my character, Lonan.
Oh my God, you've got me hooked now. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
totally delish. I'm just
Oh,
gonna
So
look
yeah.
over here.
if you Google Chakotay or the actor is Robert Beltran, you'll see
Mm,
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
I
you'll see
meant.
that.
So yeah,
yummy,
that was
yummy.
my start.
Oh.
In Voyager, they had Chakotay fall in love with a Borg, like a cyborg woman, 7 of 9, and I never figured out that dynamic. I was not a fan.
Okay,
It
good.
felt
Yeah.
too artificial and forced, and it didn't work for me. But my
Right.
brain was working, going, how would you fix this? Because I like, she
Okay.
was blonde and statuesque and really strong. And he is, dark haired and a little bit more empathic. So they should have worked. It was just poorly written.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, the Maquis and Starfleet and blonde and brunette and, the
Enemies to lovers.
structured, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I started out with that dynamic,
Yeah.
but I made her the Imperium trauma surgeon, and he was the operative that was supposed to hijack her ship. Their medical facility was destroyed. They needed a new one. So they were going to steal her medical frigate for the rebellion. And then his job was to talk her into coming along for the ride. So that's the premise of he has to convince her to switch sides. It was awesome.
That's so cool, especially now that we know the backstory. That's so cool.
So yes, my crush with Chakotay finally happened.
Yay! What kind of research did you have to do for that? Because you're talking trauma surgery and medical ship.
Well, I have a sort of medical background. I went to school for a vet tech. I did work in biomedical research for a couple of years.
Okay.
My dad was in the Navy. And my mom, my sister, and my grandma are all nurses. So I have a medical background.
Okay,
And I've
good.
always been into ships, and my dad went into shipbuilding for Bath Iron Works, where they actually build Navy destroyers.
Yeah.
So as far as converting that into space was pretty straightforward. I've watched and read a lot of sci-fi as far as what's expected. So there was a lot less medicine in it and there was more sci-fi in it.
Okay.
And basically because I was focusing on him trying to have her switch sides, I dealt more with the ethics and what is a righteous war, what is, what happens when you're being lied to, what happens when what you think happened wasn't the truth. Those were the issues that I raised more than the technology.
Yeah, and betrayal as well.
Sav, since you read this book, what do you remember some of your first impressions in reading it? Like what really stuck with you?
For me, it was the characters because I write sci-fi. So all the other sci-fi stuff fits into place. And if it fits into place, you don't notice it. So it doesn't pop out because it works like bad CGI. If it's bad, it pops out. If it's good, you don't notice. And then you find out later, oh, it was CGI. And that's how it worked. The characters pop for me. I was invested right from the start. And it's one of the books I actually remember.
Oh.
Yeah. Hence why I say, where's my breaker? And my Flynn.
Book 2 is going to be Nyara if I ever get to it.
Okay. Gotta make the time.
I know.
They're keeping you busy. Did you know when you first started plotting book 1 that it was going to be a series?
No, I knew I wanted to do a second book, and then we'll just have to see where it takes me. I knew I wanted to do Sapala's story, and then I want to do one for her best friend Nyara, who's the one who got her into the mess in book 1. So Nyara has to have her story. And I actually have the opening few pages written just so I'd have a jumping off place of where to go with it.
Yeah.
Have you plotted
and I
it yet?
entered it into, it's called Rekindled Hearts. And I entered it in an RWA contest where they only judged the first 3 pages, which was good because that's about all I had. And I actually won.
Yay.
Oh, cool.
So I can say the first 3 pages are pretty good.
And go
Now
out
I have to
Milam.
do a whole book based on that, but it's started.
No
But I
pressure.
really have to finish Flynn and Brecca first.
Have you plotted it? Rekindled Heart.
Have I what?
Plotted it.
Only roughly, not enough to start with. Basically she runs away and he has to drag her back. I mean, like, she not only left the building, she left the galaxy, and he has to go find her and drag her back to
Love it.
life.
Love it. Put me down.
All right, you got a definite fan right there waiting. I'm sure
It's actually
it's
because of Renee. I've gone from a pantser to a planter. It's because of Renee.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, so why? How did that come about?
Because she would be like, this doesn't make any sense. And then I'd have to rewrite whole chunks of data or fix it. And so in the end, I was like, you know what? Let's just plot this in some way. It's better than no way. And then I get less comebacks.
Okay.
Because the dark side has cookies.
Yeah.
I truly believe plotting helps you not get lost. And it limits those rabbit holes that you go down that you spend, 10,000 words on nothing and then go, this isn't going anywhere. And then you have to cut it. And cutting entire scenes is a heartbreaker. It is.
Yeah. I've,
Such a
I've,
schlep.
yeah, I just had that too, not that long ago with my second book, where it took me 3 weeks to write this one scene and I wrote it 4 different ways. And now in this, last revision that I'm doing, I'm like, it just doesn't work. And I cut 7,000 words by ripping it and the chapter before out. You're right.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe you'll convince me to switch over too.
Well, I don't do a plot. Like, I just say, okay, what I want to happen in this chapter. So when I start on it, I have an idea of what I want. But sometimes what I want don't happen. So
No. Yeah, and that's my fear with book 3. Like, I do have book 3 all mapped out on my whiteboard behind me. You can't see it. But I don't know if it's going to work that way because I panched the first 2 and have just been, like Renee said, now trying to pull out the rabbit holes and fill in the grass. So, okay. So we have time for maybe one more question because we're going long. So, Renee, or Sev either too, because you've both written series, you've written multiple books. Does the process for writing a book get easier, harder, same? Does it matter, based on series or genre?
I think it's easier because my series is based on the books that came before. So each subsequent book, I actually have to do less research.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
just had a workshop in Pen to Paper where somebody was talking about a book Bible. And that's super critical, I think, if you have a series, is it's a place to put all of the pertinent data so you can look at your book Bible instead of going back and rereading book 2 to write book 6. It's like it's all there in the outlines. Yeah, that exactly.
Yeah.
I think it gets easier because you've got all that back.
The world building is easier. I agree with that.
Mhm.
But in my case, it's timelines. Because some of the
Okay.
books happen simultaneously. So the timelines is a nightmare. I'm at the point where I just put next week, last month. I can't do exactly when it happened, but it happened. So for me, it's the timelines. Yeah.
My God, that's so, because I write historical is so huge for me too, the timelines, because I have to hit certain points to get the history just right. And you're right, plotting those timelines sometimes just
Yeah, it's a nightmare. But writing in general, it actually depends on the story. If I have something that's not like a strong idea, and my muse is on vacation, then it's a struggle. Like, just come back, damn it. And then other times you're like, bam, you go right through the saggy middle without feeling it.
That's
Yeah.
one of the pros of plotting is if you get stuck in a particular spot, I just go ahead and write a different scene in a different part of the book, and then I will patchwork quilt it later. It helps with writer's block. Is if this one part just isn't working right now, I'll work on something else and then see how it flows into each other later.
I can't.
Okay.
My OCD kicks in, and because I refuse to allow myself to write the fun parts unless I've written the other parts in between. So I cannot reward myself. So when I get to a part where it's not working, you have to change the scene. So if they're having an argument inside and it's not going anywhere, move them outside. And it just somehow triggers my brain, and suddenly the scene's making sense. And that's how I've figured out how to break writer's block. And yes, it's true. For NaNoWriMo 2 years ago, I did Save the Cat. If anybody knows, you can Google Save the Cat. I did Save the Cat for my NaNoWriMo. I think it was Eye of Silver. I'm not sure. No, it wasn't. It was a sci-fi romance. You haven't seen it yet, Renee. And because I had every chapter and what they wanted and where they were not allowed to get it, I could, as soon as I hit a saggy middle or a slow chapter, I could see where I'm going, and I could write it. So that helped. That helped a lot.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to try that. I don't know. I've always I'm one of those, I have to put my butt in the chair every night and just keep writing. So that's just been my tactic, is just I'm gonna ram myself through that chapter and just give myself permission to just write crap and just put crap on the page and then tear it out as I need to. And that might help. Maybe I should try that next time.
I
All
also
right, well,
find sprints work if you use sprints. So if you
yeah.
say, okay, I'm going to write for the next 15 minutes crazy as fast as I can. All right. Then you time yourself. There are lots of apps on Discord, or you can just have a 15-minute timer on the internet, and you write
Yeah.
as fast as you can. Within an hour and a half, you've written 2,000, 3,000 words because
Oh, I don't
you're
know.
sprinting. That
Okay,
helps. That's how I got through the last NaNoWriMo.
cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, Renee, we are out of time. And there's so much we didn't even get to. So we're gonna have you back sometime. But before we go, why don't you tell us, please, where people can find you online?
I'm on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram under Renee Wildes. Except Instagram flipped it and it's Wildes Renee for whatever reason.
Well, she is wild. You must read Seditious Hearts. You'll see how wild she is.
My website is reneewildesromance.com.
Awesome.
And it's got all my books, and I also have a page for all the books I've edited. So it's a way for people to, kind of get in to see other writers. I just sent a list to my webmistress this morning for some of the newer ones that aren't up there yet. But yeah.
That's a good
Excellent.
idea. I think I'll add that to my website.
Yeah, because then it's like people can find new reads that are good.
I made
like
good.
And they're very
Yeah.
diverse. There's actually a couple of contemporary in there. I don't edit contemporary anymore.
Okay.
I strictly, because of time constraints, I want to do strictly fantasy and sci-fi. But there are a couple of contemporaries. The Perpetual and Mr. Rebound are both books that I edited.
Nice. All right, well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure you like this video, follow us, subscribe so you can hear more writing tips and talk to editors and authors. If you have any questions for Renee that we didn't answer, please put them in the comments below and we will get those questions to her, maybe invite her back to answer your questions. And Renee, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for making this so easy.
We try, we keep it chill.
Because I was really scared.
Oh, well, now you can celebrate. You got through. Everybody,
Bye, everyone.
Bye.